I'll tell him about
Maybe he's going to join us. I don't know. I can't hold up the works because I have another shiur at 11:45. And I have to prepare that shiur. Okay. Let's read the psukim in Parshas Vayechi.
It's coming in now. Okay.
It's always good to read the psukim first. Vayikru Yimei Yisrael Amos. We're getting close to the time of death. And Mirza Hashem will talk about death with regard to Yaakov Avinu. That's a very interesting concept. Vayikra Libno Yosef Vayomer lo Imno matzasi chen beinecha simna yodcha tachas yirechi v'asisa imadi chesed ve'emes alna tikparedi b'mitzrayim v'shachavti im avosai v'nasatani b'mitzrayim v'kavarti b'kvurasam Vayomer anochi aseki dvarecha Vayomer yishavali vayishavalo vayishtachu Yisrael al rosh hamita. So let's ask a number of questions here on this parsha. Number one, what is the emphasis here on Sim na yodcha tachas yurechi? Rashi indicates that the concept of Sim na yodcha tachas yurechi, meaning placing your hand under my thigh, has something to do with a shvuah. When you take an oath, you have to hold on to something that's sanctified. But we're going to look for another possible explanation for this idea of tachas yirechi. So you want to underline on the third line the words. The last word in the line is tachas. Here's a pen or a pencil if you need one. I got another one here if anyone needs one. And it's always a good idea to highlight things. You know, I like to offer. I like to offer these highlights here. I can't promise you that they work because they've been here for months. They're probably totally dried out. And if no one takes them, I'm very insulted. So please take them.
I'll take one.
Okay.
I'm not going to insult you. I'll take one.
Okay, great. Okay. So first you want to highlight the words tachas yirechi. You see those words? Okay. Then you want to underline in the same line two words called chesed v'emes. Again, we want to try to understand what chesed v'emes is all about and why in this context it's called both kindness and truth. Then we want to ask a more general question on alna tikbareni b'mitzrayim. What is there's almost like a repulsion here that Yaakov Avinu is repulsed by the idea that his remains will end in Mitzrayim and that's where they'll be buried and they'll never taken away from the burial. And the last question is, this seems to be a parsha, a section in the Torah that perhaps reflects on the relationship between Yaakov and Yosef. What do I mean? The relationship between Yaakov and Yosef, which the Torah begins to explain from the very birth of Yosef. Yosef is chosen, is handpicked by Yaakov Avinu to transmit the Torah, all the zikna, the teachings, the chachma, the wisdom of Yaakov. It's interesting, and I'll ask you a quiz question or two now. How old was Yosef when he left his father? Meaning he's taken away forcibly from his father. 17. And how long did Yaakov live in Mitzrayim with Yosef? 17. So my Rebbe Zichron Levrach used to always point out that it took 17 years for Yaakov to train and raise Yosef in the ways of Kedusha, of holiness and Tara, such that he could live in Mitzrayim and withstand all the great temptations. The minimum amount of training and preparation would have to be 17 years. When Yosef rises...
Why would Yaakov have to be 17 years in Mitzrayim?
When Yosef rises to the position, we'll call it the viceroy of the greatest civilization of its time, Yosef is faced with a brand new set of challenges. And those challenges have to do with power. When you achieve a position of power, there are new challenges, new pitfalls about how you treat the people, or chas v'shalom, how you mistreat the people. There are moral issues, there's triage, who do you decide? You have to, in Yosef's case, he has to divvy up the produce, the provisions. And all this again requires a Rebbe Yosef needs an entirely new type of training. And again, the magic number, Yaakov is going to overlap with his son Yosef for how many years? 17 years. So the 17 years of training of one sort, preparation for all the challenges of Mitzrayim, of what's called the Ervas HaOretz, and another 17 years of training for a different set of challenges, a more, shall we say, moral and ethical challenges that face a leader of people. But the relationship between Yaakov and Yosef, which is emphasized time and time again in these parashios, almost in half of the book of Bereshis, comes to its perhaps fruition, its greatest achievement, at this moment in time when Yaakov commands Yosef to bring his remains up from Mitzrayim and bury them in Eretz Canaan. And the question is why? What is it about the relationship between a father and a son, in this case the chosen son amongst them all, that reflects itself in this commitment on the part of Yosef, of the son? Vayomer, he declares, Anochi ese kidvarecha. And not only Anochi ese kidvarecha, but Yaakov says this is a tremendous shlichus. This is a very significant agency that you're going to achieve and you're going to implement. I need to strengthen that commitment with a shvuah. And then finally, the last question we want to ask is, Vayishtachu Yisrael al Rosh Hamita. What's that all about? Yosef is given this mandate, and it's described by the description of Yasisa imadi chesed v'emes. Rashi says, what's chesed v'emes? Every time you do a charity, a good deed for someone, that's called chesed. But with regard to the dead, that takes on a new dimension. It's emes. Anytime that you're motivated to bestow goodness and compassion upon a person, you always have, perhaps in the back of your mind, a quid pro quo relationship. That person is going to give you in return. He realizes he owes you one, as we would say. He owes you a tashlum, a payment, as an expression of his appreciation for what you did for him. So in the back of your mind, there's a certain element of shalol lishma. You're not purely for the sake of goodness, but also you hope to get something in return. And that's true even within family relationships, because you could have one brother who does something for a sibling and he expects something in return. Look what I did for you, you could do for me. Even parents and children. So where does emes come in? And Rashi identifies emes, truth, as totally l'shem shamayim, meaning you have no anticipation of return, of getting a kickback, so to speak, and getting a quid pro quo. And that's the case of chesed sha'osim im amesim. Person in a classical sense gets involved in burying the dead. What can he expect in return from the dead? It's purely emes. It's a chesed shel emes. It's a chesed on the highest level. Rashi's language is very telling, very beautiful. He says on the fourth line in the second paragraph, She'eno mitzapel l'tashlum gmul. He does not anticipate any payment in return. However, we're going to ask now a slew of questions, 3 major questions, but there'll be sort of nuances and more questions to object against this Rashi. First of all, the super commentary on Rashi al Torah is called the Re'em, otherwise known as Rabbi Elio Mizrahi, and he, together with the Maral Miprag, who also wrote a super commentary on Rashi, the Gur Aryeh, they both raise the same question. We find the concept of Chesed v'Emes with regard to Eliezer. Eliezer is sent on a mission by Avram, his master, to go to Lavan and Besuel and bring back a marriage partner for Yitzchak. And the pasuk says, "V'ata im yeshchem osim Chesed v'Emes es Adoni higidu li." That if I will be, Eliezer declares, if I will be successful in bringing back a marriage partner for Yitzchak, the son of my master, that would be an act of chesed v'emes. So the commentaries say, what do you mean chesed v'emes? Baruch Hashem, thank God, Avram Avinu is very much alive and well, and you're doing a tremendous chesed for Avram Avinu. Eliezer is now clinching the marriage of Yitzchak. By the way, this is not our topic for today. How old is Yitzchak at this time? According to Chazal, 37 years old, maybe even 40 years old. And if that be the case, you can imagine what a great thing is to find a marriage partner for someone of that age. This is very contemporary. I don't want to go into detail here, but we have what?
She was 3.
What did he say? I wasn't referring to second marriages. I'm talking about first marriages. But really, I think it's a great chesed for a second marriage too. But in the case of a first marriage of a man who's that age, and and not only that, you remember that Avraham Avinu whittles it down. It has to be a woman who has the proper attributes, and she's got to be willing to leave her family and come back to Eretz Canaan. Don't give me a wife who will take my son to over there to Padan Aram, saying back to Chutz La'aretz. No, it's got to be here. No, we're not going to Manchester. We're not going anywhere. We're here, right? And that's a great chesed. And Eliezer embellishes it by calling a chesed of emes. But it's not really a chesed of emes. I mean, we hope and we pray that Avraham Avinu will recognize and appreciate the great chesed that Eliezer did for him in bringing back Rivka for Yitzchak. I don't know if you want to call it chesed shel emes. Rashi says chesed shel emes is chesed shosim ima mesim. The second question is the Or Chaim's question. And he says the following. We remember that Yaakov says to Yosef before he dies that I'm going to repay you. How does Yaakov repay Yosef? The pasuk says, "Vani nasati lecha Shechem echad al achecha," which means that Yosef is going to represent how many shvatim? He should only be one, but actually he's 2 shvatim. This is a great gift that was bestowed by Yaakov on Yosef. And Rashi says, why did Yaakov feel that Yosef deserved such an incredible gift, that Ephraim and Asher would be 2 separate shvatim? Says Rashi, because you've guaranteed me that you'll take the effort and extend all the necessary requirements in order to bury me back in Eretz Canaan. And there's going to be a whole parsha in the Torah describing all the work and all the effort that Yosef puts in to convince Paro, and they bring a whole entourage to bury Yaakov Avinu in Eretz Canaan. So Yaakov already promises Yosef upfront dividends, and he's going to get 2 portions instead of 1. And why is this so? Because, as it says in Sefer Yeshua, as Atzmos Yosef Asher Hela Meretz Mitzrayim Kovru B'Shechem, Yaakov Avinu gives schar, he gives reward for the tircha of Yosef, who puts himself out to bury his father in Eretz Canaan. How could you call that chesed v'emes? Chesed shel emes means that there's no reward. Here there's a reward that was given in his lifetime by Yaakov to Yosef.
Rabbi, the reward wasn't solicited. He didn't go in expecting
okay,
reward.
That's interesting. What the Geshe is pointing out here is that maybe this was a gift that was bestowed upon Yosef without his initiating. That wasn't part of the original deal. But Rashi seems to say that we're talking about chesed shel emes of chesedim amesim. It's not exactly so, because Yaakov already anticipates Yosef's fulfillment of his commitment. And if Yosef makes that commitment, Yaakov already, said, look, I'm still alive, let me do something for you in return. Then we get to the third question. How could Rashi possibly say that Chesedim Amesim is emes because Eino Mitzapeh Lutash, he doesn't expect from the dead any sort of repayment? Well, could you say that about every act of chesed, or almost every act of chesed? For example, a poor person asks me for a handout. So am I expecting gemul? It could be that this ani someday will become a very rich person. But I don't know, here in Yerushalayim we're pretty familiar with the makabtzei the davos, and I daven in a shul in Har Nof, and I can tell you I almost know them all by name after all these decades. You know what I'm saying? Never has any one of them, and again, I'm not from the big Bali stock, I'm not coming here to boast, but I've given out a lot of money over the years, and I never got repaid, not once, by any of these ideas. My door is still open over there, but no one's knocking. So really you could say that out of 1,000 aniyim, 1 out of 1,000 maybe will ever be able to repay you when he becomes a wealthy guy. But the other 999, that's really chesed shel emes. And as Gershon points out before, I don't really, when I initiate that stock, I'm not really expecting to get repaid. So what is this all about? That Rashi has this new concept of chesed im amesim, that when you dedicate yourself for the benefit of the deceased, you won't be dependent or expecting any sort of tashlum.
I just on that, it always bothered me when we speak about this because there is still the family.
Excellent. I was about to ask that question, but before we ask that question, I want to throw in one last question, and that is, what are you talking? Eino mishalim, eino mitzapel l'tashlum gmul. Where is reward coming from? With a capital R in most cases. From upstairs, right? So what are you telling me? You did a chesed for the Mason and you're not going to get rewarded for that? You're purely lishma. I mean, we could say that about every mitzvah that we do, and maybe we're justified in expecting some sort of reward because that's one of the fundamentals of our faith, that we believe in reward and punishment for any mitzvah. And certainly if I bury the dead, I expect to get paid back by Hashem, and I have a right to expect that. That's part of the Jewish religion. It's one of the fundamentals. So what are you telling me? You're telling me that I'm doing it purely, without any expectation of Gemul. Okay, maybe the dead person's not going to wake up from his kever and give me a payback or sign a check. I don't know. Dead people don't usually sign checks, although maybe after Tchias HaMesim they'll sign the check. I don't know. But certainly I expect a Gemul from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then, as Dr. Plotsky points out, and I'm glad you're here to point this out because I thought of this question myself many times, after all, the dead has a family. So the family, and this is true, as you and I know, for issues in health, for example, Rahman al-Islam, a person takes ill, and the members of the family have to divvy up amongst themselves, who's going to take care of the sick person. There's so many treatments that they have to go for, and then there's so much paperwork that has to be filled out in a contemporary society. So if somebody stands up to the plate and he says, I'll take care of it, certainly the other members of the family have to express a great sense of gratitude and appreciate what he's done. Okay, leaving all those questions aside, let's talk about the other words in this parsha that I asked you to highlight. Simna yodcha tachas yirechi. What's that all about? So Rashi says tachas yirechi is a shvuah. When you take an oath, and we found it earlier by Eliezer, right? So let's read in the middle column, there's a paragraph that starts with the word od. And there the pasuk says, "Simna yodcha tachas yirechi." That's what Avram instructs Eliezer. Vashbircha b'Hashem Elokei shamayim, and you will take this oath and this commitment that you will not bring me a girl from the Benos Canaan, but rather you'll go back to Padan Aram and you'll bring a girl from my family. And once again, we see consistently that the Torah requires in a very important agency and a commitment that you do this simna yodcha tachas yirechi. So we saw it here in our Parsha Vayechi with regard to Yosef, that he takes this oath, committing himself to bury his father in Eretz Canaan. We saw it back in the case of, I think his Parshas told us, if I remember correctly, of Eliezer, Simna Yodcha Tachas Yirechi. What's the Tachas Yirechi? Again, Rashi says that it has something to do with the laws of oaths, but Shivim Panim LaTorah, there's 70 ways of interpreting the Torah. So maybe we'll find another way. Now, there's a famous Gemara in Eruvin which coins a phrase that reoccurs and repeats itself throughout our literature, throughout Shas, and when I say Shas, I mean the Rishonim and the Poskim, and that's called Bra Kare Da'avuha. You'll see this on the bottom of the middle column. Bra Kare Da'avuha, which literally translates as the son is the leg of his father. Very strange. The body is made up of many parts. If you want to say that the son is somehow an extension or he's dedicated and loyal to his father, I don't know if you'd call him the leg of his father. Maybe call him the head of his father or the heart of his father. But why Kara Davuha? And again, as I said, this is a phrase that's, it appears, it surfaces all over the place. And now, my friends, we're on the left column here, and we're going to read a set of psukim in Koheles. And you've all heard of one of the great Hasidic giants, Rabbi Eliezer Milozhinsk, Elimelech Milozhinsk. His brother was quite famous. He was called Rebbe Zusha. But not only that, he had a very famous Rebbe who used to quote him. It's very interesting that a Rebbe quotes the Talmud. And he says the following, that when Shlomo Melech, the Chacham Mikol Adam, says, Kol asher timtza yodcha lasos b'kocha aseh, ki ein maaseh v'cheshbon v'das v'chachma b'sha'ol asher ataholech shama. Again, if we had an English translation, I would read to you the official English translation, but I'm just going to translate it to the best of my ability, and you'll take a look in the various English Tanakhs that we have here. The emphasis here is to warn a person, to make sure that a person is very careful about Maaseh. Maaseh here means the acts of mitzvos. And it says in the Pasuk that it's a great wisdom to be careful and meticulous about observing the mitzvahs before you get to a place called Sha'ol, that's after death, Asher Taholech Shama, that's where you're going to end up. What it really means is that death means the separation between the body and the soul. The mitzvah concept, the fulfillment of a mitzvah, presupposes the integration of the body and soul. So we are obligated to mitzvahs because we're alive. Life means we are a hybrid, an integration, a synthesis of body and soul. Shlomo Melech is saying, be careful. Observe the mitzvahs meticulously, with a great deal of sacrifice, because you should know that ultimately you're a holech shama, you're on your way there, and there means after death, there's no room for mitzvahs after death. And now we want to ask the following question, and this is the main question of our discussion of this morning, and it's still morning. Okay. Is it really true, as I think you and I would have said so, if they would have asked us for our knee-jerk response, are there mitzvos after death? Can a person be rewarded for mitzvahs after death? The word that Chazal use for death is called ptira. What does ptira mean? Exempt from the mitzvahs. I'm no longer part of the mitzvahs. And it was always my impression, again, until yesterday when I prepared this year, that that's an absolute statement. There's no way that you could rack up, again, if this is an American phrase, I apologize, brownie points after death. That's it. The cheshbon is closed. Your account is closed, and that's it. You can only go up to heaven with those mitzvahs that you have in your bank account, but beyond that, beyond death, there's no such thing as posthumous mitzvahs and posthumous rewards for mitzvahs. However, that is not exactly true. And why isn't it exactly true? Because we have a concept which we derive from Avram Avinu called Vishamru Asher Tziva es Bonav es Beiso Achra Vishamru Derech Hashem. There's a concept here called Tziva es Bonav es Beiso Achra. In one word, in the English language, you'd call it a legacy. Parents leave a legacy for their children. Now, will that legacy be observed? Will the children live up to that legacy? A father spent endless amount of energy and time to raise his children, lechanech es children, lechanech es bonav es bnei soachrov, for the purpose of serving Hashem. What's going to happen after he dies? It's a very tragic and a very solemn question when you think about it. I'll ask it in first person, am I going to be missed after I die? Are my children going to go in my path? For example, I myself, when I think about my father all the time, I'm wondering, what would my father tell me if he were alive today? Am I making the right decisions? Have I taken upon myself the right position? Am I living in the right community? Did I marry the father? That he was around, so he was, my father's gone for a long time, so my sister, I think I always tell you this, my sister dreams of my father almost every night. She literally has conversations with my father in her dreams. I don't know if I do or I don't, because I don't remember my dreams. I never remember my dreams. How many people in this room, I'm just curious, remember their dreams? One person, one and a half, one and a finger. Yeah. Okay, so I see what? Occasionally, right. But, there's a psychological mechanism that allows us to forget. Sometimes if somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night, or if you wake yourself up in the middle of the night, we won't go into details why you do such a thing, especially at my age, right? But you all of a sudden, you get arrested in the middle of a dream and you remember the dream. Usually, 5 seconds later, you fall asleep and you don't remember your dream. But the concept of remembering a parent after death is so essential to the Torah perspective of parents and children. The whole relationship between Yaakov and Yosef is all predicated on this underlying principle, which is an overriding principle in Judaism, and that is the relationship between a father and a son that continues even posthumously. We remember our parents not just on a yard site, or not just on a day in which we recite Yizkar, on Yom Kippur, etc., etc. But we remember our parents constantly. They're always with us in a certain sense. I don't mean physically, and you don't have to go as far as to see them in your nightly dream, but there's always a sense of, am I continuing in the path of my father? And this is what Avram Avinu gets credit for. The pasuk itself addresses the question, why is Avram Avinu chosen for such great reward? And the answer is, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu declares, Yedativ, I know something about Avram Avinu. You and I would have said, what's great about Avram Avinu? He's a monotheist in a world of idolatry. He is a light in a dark world. He's the knight of faith. He's willing and able to stand up against 10 tests, right? The 10 tests, culminating in the Akedah. No. The pasuk gives a different answer. Ki yedativ lamana shayitzave es bonav es beiso achrav. First and foremost, Avram Avinu is the father of children, and he trains them, and he gives them a legacy, and he gives them a purpose in life, and he's successful. V'shamru derech Hashem, and they will take the derech Hashem, the way of God, which Avram Avinu injected in them, and they will observe that derech Hashem meticulously. They are dedicated lasos staku mishpat. And then the pasuk ends, and Rashi makes a big deal about the end of this pasuk. Laman hevi Hashem al Avram es asher diber elav. Laman hevi means that why does Avram Avinu get all the rewards that HaKadosh Baruch Hu designated for him? Is kach, it's because hu mitzav lebonov, and they go in his path. Rabbosai, what we're seeing in front of our eyes is an unbelievably new principle, that the children are responsible for the rewards of the father, meaning there are rewards that God will bestow on the father because the children follow in the path of their father. We're going to see a Gemara in Baba Basra here on the bottom left of page 1. It's very interesting. The Gemara compares two words, both of which that describe death. One in the case of David HaMelech, and the other in the case of Yoav. Yoav is a very complex personality. In the case of David, it says Shchiva, Vayishkav. In the case of Yoav, it says Misa. What's the difference between the two? And the answer is, says the Gemara, that David HaMelech left behind him his son Shlomo. Hiniach ben Kamoso. This is what I want you to highlight if you can. It's a Gemara in Baba Basra, just those 3 words. In the paragraph Vizehu, on the 3rd line, Hiniach ben Kamoso. Because that really captures the whole secret of what we're discussing today, called Hiniach ben Kamoso. He has left behind him, David HaMelech, a child, a son, who's Kimoso, who's great, and he will follow in the footsteps, in the legacy of his father. That's Shlomo HaMelech. Nemrbo Shchiva, that's indicated by the word Shchiva. Rabbosai, we're going to see the word Shchiva over and over again, especially in Sefer Bereishis. Vayishkav im avosav. What does Shchiva mean? Shchiva means he becomes a link in generations. He links us to the previous generation because he's great and he follows in the legacy of his father and his grandfather. He's a link in the next generation because he has children and grandchildren who follow in his footsteps. That's called Vayishkav im Avosav. That's called Shchiva. Yoav lo hiniach ben kamoso. Yoav was not fortunate to have a son who would push and continue on the path of his father, and therefore it's called Misa. Misa means like the ultimate death kind of thing. And that's where it ends. And here we want to study on page 2 the insights of the Ksav Sofer, of Binyamin Sofer, the son of the great Chassam Sofer. The Pasuk says in Sefer Malachim, Vayikruvu Yemei David Lamus, Vayitzav Shlom B'no Lemar, Anochi Holech B'derech Kol Haaretz. What does this mean? David is coming close to the end of his life. Vayitzav, he commands his son Shlomo. What do you mean he commands? I read the pasuk over and over again. I don't see any command here. All it says in the pasuk is Anochi holech b'derech kol haaretz. Says the Ksav Sofer. The key here is in the word holech. Once again, if you could highlight on the third line on page 2 the word holech, the first word in the line. What does holech mean? What is halicha? Says the Ksav Sofer, there are 2 words that often appear in Tanakh in one context, and they should be compared but contrasted one from the other. Holech and Omed. And we're going to see this in a pasuk in just a minute. Holech and Omed. Holech is a person who's on the move. Omed is a person who's stationary, he's in his spot. Says the Ksav Sofer that when David HaMelech says Holech, I'm a Holech, and he's referring to the fact that he's going to die, why does he use the word Holech? Because my knee-jerk response would be choose the word Omed. I mean, you're coming to the end of your life. That's it. You're Omed. You're not moving anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're wherever you are, and we won't go into detail here, but it's a very tight spot, if you know what I mean. I don't even know if they give you much air to breathe over there. And yet, David HaMelech says, Anochi Holech. The answer is, that's the nature and the substance of the tzivui, of the command that David passes on to his son Shlomo. I want to be a Holech. I want to continue even posthumously, and you, Shlomo Melech, are going to guarantee that. Why? Because you're going to go b'drachav in my derech, you're going to be a holech, and your halicha in my footsteps, so to speak, in my legacy, lishmar chukosav, mutzvosav, umishpat veidosav, that's going to make me a holech even after I go. And perhaps, Rabbi, say this sheds a light on the famous statement of the Gemara in Tainis. Yaakov Avinu lo mes, the Yaakov Avinu never died. And the Gemara says, what do you mean? They gave a hesped for him, they gave a eulogy, they did chanata, which I think in English is called embalming, and everything. You tell me he didn't die? Well, they were eulogizing someone who's alive? And the answer is that, what does it mean, Yaakov Avinu lo mes? Yaakov Avinu left behind him children, 12 children, the 12 Shvatim, all of whom were tzaddikim, all of whom would go in the way and the path of his father, and therefore Yaakov Avinu lo mes. Misa means a total cutoff, nothing goes on, nothing continues, total cessation. That's called Misa. Yaakov Avinu lo mes. Yaakov Avinu has 12 sons who are going to keep Yaakov under the status of a holech. Yaakov is going to continue to be a holech even after he dies. David HaMelech hiniach ben kamoso, and there's a concept called shchiva. The concept of shchiva means that he's still somewhat alive in this world. Not physically, his body is not alive, but his teachings are alive, and therefore he is still considered alive. And that's
a few words about Avelim saying Kaddish.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're saying, what are they doing?
That's interesting. Maybe the Kaddish of the Avelim itself is a kind of holech.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent.
That's what's purpose.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, I know that, but I never thought of it in this context. That's excellent. So if you take a look at the paragraph that starts with the words V'chein Eitzel Yaakov Avinu, which is the next to last paragraph on your right column, and that's for the benefit of those who want to follow the text inside. You're not obligated to do so, but I give you that offer. He says that with regard to Yaakov Avinu, as far as his physical body is concerned, that's called gufo, he died, and they gave him a hesped, they embalmed his body. But nevertheless, because he left behind him 12 Shvatim Tzadikim Gemurim, therefore, he says, the Kedusha, the sanctity as an abstract idea, the abstract spiritual sanctity of Yaakov Avinu through, vicariously so to speak, through Klal Yisrael continues. And therefore he doesn't die, Yaakov. He may die as a physical entity and he's buried, but nevertheless lo mes, because the Torah, the mitzvahs, his legacy continues, and therefore Yaakov is still a holech, he's not an omed. And this is what the Gemara means when it says Makish hu lazaro, ma zaro b'chaim afhu b'chaim. Anyone who has left children behind him and the children are following in his ways, he's also considered still alive. In other words, we wouldn't call it an absolute misa. And later on he's going to discuss the case of Talmidim, that if a person makes an impact on other people, even if they're not biologically his children, that continues his legacy beyond his death. And this is what the Chassam Sofer mentions here about the difference between a malach and a human being. The Pasuk in Zechariah, we're in the middle column now, first paragraph, says, V'nasati l'cha mahalchim bein ha'omdim ha'ela. And the Navi promises that an Ish Yisrael is always considered a Mahalech, even amongst or compared to the Omdim. Who are the Omdim? The Omdim are the Malachim. The Malachim are there to fulfill the agency and the mandate of divine being, but they're really stationary. They never grow. They never face challenges. They never have to develop on a higher level. But man is given this unbelievable gift to be a Mahalech. He's on the move. He goes from one level to the other. The Pasuk says, Im b'chukosai telechu. And you would think that after death a man becomes an omed. He has no possibility of kiyum mitzvahs. But the answer is no. He leaves behind him students. He leaves behind him people who are influenced and impacted by him. He leaves behind himself children. And they are going in his derech of Torah and Yira. He's considered the father a Mahalech. He is still moving. And even in the Olam HaElyon, even in the higher worlds, he's still considered a Mahalech. And that's the principle, if you've ever heard of it, in Gemara in Sanhedrin, Bra Mizake Abba, a son could give merits to his father. And what does that mean? If I give tzedakah because of my father, that's the impact he had on it, then the reward accrues to my father because he's the one who caused me to give tzedakah. The other people who die, they're called omdim. They don't go from place to place. They don't go higher and higher. But we, the tzaddikim, who leave behind us those who follow in our footsteps, we are called omdim. We are called mahalchim and not called omdim. And therefore, v'nasati l'cha, says the Chassam Sofer in the bold paragraph on the bottom of the middle column, mahalchim bein ha'omdim ki atzadik achrei moso. I have to take a break for a second. This is so emotional for me. Hatzadik acharei moso eino mahalach. You might say that he's not a mahalach anymore because he's chavshim in a mitzvahs omnom. However, kishehem talmidim harbe, if he left behind him students and they follow in his footsteps, is called mitzvahs asher yasu heim. Those mitzvahs that they, the students, implement. Havi lekilu hu asam. It's as if he did that. Here I want to take a break for a minute. Do we have a siddur here? Okay, we don't have a siddur here. Anyway, you do have a siddur? Oh, excellent. Do you remember a line in Yigdal that sounds very strange? Where is Yigdal? Oh, I found Yigdal. Yigdal says the following. It says the following. No sein l'rosh hara Ke rish aso gomer ish chesed. What should be the next word? Ke chazdo. Ke mif'alo. Mif'alo in Lashon Kodesh is hispile, which means causative. When Hashem is meting out punishment to a rosh, it's because of his rishus, his cruelty, his criminal actions. But when it comes to chesed and gemilas chesed, meaning when Hashem bestows reward, it doesn't say kechazdo, but kimif'olo. Mif'olo is an ongoing, endless chain of events. All this accrues. Harehu olev aholech, and the Chassam Sofer says that even after death, he goes from one level to the other. Achmeimoso. And that's what's considered a fulfillment of the Pasuk in Zechariah Novi v'nasati l'cha mahalchim. Even when he's amongst the Omdim, he's with the dead in the graveyard, he's still called a Mahalech. And here he quotes an insight of the Noda B'Yehuda and Joshua Hatzlach, who says on the Gemara in Shabbos, it says, Omelei Rav l'Rab Shmuel Bar Shilat, Achim means, heat up, to warm up someone, passionate, with passion. Behespeda, in other words, after I go, please give a very inspiring, passionate hespeda eulogy for me. The hasam ka'imna. And the question is, what are those two words, the hasam ka'imna means? Hasam ka'imna means, that's where I'll be. Now what is Rav telling his student, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilat, when he says, that's where I'll be? And the answer is, the question is, will I be there as an Omeid, or will I be there as a Mahalech? Am I going up higher after I die, or am I just stationary and that's where it is for now? And the answer, says that Tzlach, is it depends. If you can inspire the people of my hesped, what's the purpose of a hesped? People think the purpose of a hesped is to get people to feel the tragedy. No. It's much deeper than that. A true successful hesped is where the eulogizer will portray a picture of the person and what his legacy is, and will inspire the people to follow in that legacy. And that's what Rav instructs his Talmud, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilat. Please, give an inspiring lecture so that whatever legacy I leave behind. Rav was one of the unbelievable tzaddikim. I mean, if we had an hour, I would tell you what Chazal say about Rav. It's nothing that we can think of in our reality, even vaguely, can describe Rav. I mean, anyway, so he says, Hasam Kayim Nesham Ba'olam Ha'elyon. Where am I in the Olam Ha'elyon? Am I an Omeid? I need your help. I need you to arouse the people and inspire them to do tshuva, to follow the good things that I leave behind me, and then, as a result, I will become a holech. And this is an unbelievable principle. And now, since I see we're a little bit pressed for time, let's just fast forward, if we will, to page 3. I'm going to make myself a note as to what we are skipping here, because there's a lot of good stuff that we're skipping, but I think we want to get the main points of this presentation. If you look at the paragraph that starts Hine on page 3, it's on the right column, and he says, what does it mean, the Gemara in Eruvin, B'na Kare Davuha? Why, of all the limbs of the body, the one that's chosen is the leg or the legs of a person? What is the function of a leg or the legs? Exactly, of being a mahalech. The children are considered the feet of their father. Will the father move forward, or will he be stagnant? The father's going to die. Now the son is the Yoresh, he's the heir. Well, now the son is faced with the following challenge. He has the responsibility to be the Raglayim, to be the feet. And whatever the father did not succeed in accomplishment in his 70 or 80 years, that's what he's going to achieve on behalf of his father. He's going to be the legs of his father. He's going to fill in the missing blanks. He's going to make his father into a mahalech. And now we begin to understand why Yaakov Avinu, as he gets close to the end of his life, he requests of Yosef, Simna Yodcha Tachas Yirech. Yaakov Avinu is telling him in an allusion, in a hint, that after he dies, he no longer has legs. He doesn't have legs that can move. He doesn't have the possibility on a conceptual level of moving forward, being a holech. Because up in the Olam Ha'elyon, there are no opportunities to fulfill mitzvahs. But in this world, down here, there's an opportunity to make me into a mahalech, to give me legs. You, Yosef, of all the brothers, have unique position and responsibility to be my legs. B'na kari davur, you could make me into a mahalech if you fulfill your responsibility and you pass on and implement my legacy and pass it on to your children, then I will continue to be a mahalech. Please understand that you are taking upon yourself a commitment to be my Yerechaim, my thighs, my legs, to make me into a mahalech, even in the Olam HaNeshamos, where there's a separation between the body and the soul. We begin to shed a new light on the concept of the Asisa Imadi Chesed Fi Emes. Rashi says that Chesed that you do for the dead is a Chesed Shel Emes. What is a Chesed Shel Emes? Rashi, in his way, interprets it because you're not Mitzabel Gmul. We're going to take another approach about why Chesed Amamesim is Chesed Shel Emes. Yaakov Avinu turns to Yosef and he says to him, Al na tikbareni Mitzrayim. If I will be buried in Mitzrayim, no one will see me as their paradigm, as their vision, their image, to continue my legacy, to go in the Derech HaTorah that I trained them in. They'll long forget me, because I will be buried in oblivion in Mitzrayim together with all the Mitzrim. And then I become a dead person, a true Misa, final Misa, with my death. But what I'm asking you, Yosef, is Al not to create Mitzrayim. Guarantee that I can still be a moving force and an inspiration for my children. Bury me in Eretz Canaan. That's where our future is, in the land of Israel. And many poskim say this is why a person should be buried in Israel. Other poskim, by the way, are opposed to that idea. They don't think we bring dead bodies to Israel. But those who are in favor of it, and we transfer dead bodies to Israel, it's because the existence of the kever, of the gravesite here in Israel, will continue to have an influence on the people of Israel. First and foremost, on the family, if they hopefully come to Israel, whether it's for a yard site or hopefully to settle in Israel. And then, if we go back to the original parsha that we started with on page 1, the first paragraph, the next thing that Yaakov says to Yosef is V'shachavti im avosai, Rabosai. What should we highlight in that word? Which word?
Shachavti.
Excellent. V'shachavti, the word shchiva. The Gemara says in Bava Basra that Yoav died Misa. David HaMelech is shchiva. What does it mean shchiva? V'shachavti im avosai. It means I will be another link in the chain. Whatever I received from my father Yitzchak, from his father Yaakov, from his father Avram, that's going to be passed on to my children. And that's what Yosef is going to be successfully guarantee, that it's going to be v'shachavti im avosai shchiva. Remember we said that David HaMelech is shchiva because he has Shlomo HaMelech. I, says Yaakov Avinu, I will be zocher to shchiva avosai because of you, Yosef, because you, Yosef, are in a unique position amongst all the brothers to carry on my legacy. And what does Yosef respond? Vayomer Anochi ese kidvarecha. And then at the end of this parsha, after Yosef makes his commitment, he takes a shvuah. Vayishtachu Yisrael al Rosh Hamita, says Rashi al Rosh Hamita. Why does Yaakov Avinu, before he dies, why does he put his head, so to speak, his whole body is on the mita? What's the mita? The bed? Rashi says the bed here has a very significant symbolic significance, and what is that? Mitaso shlema, Chazal say with regard to Yaakov Avinu, his mita shlema. There's not one rasha, no evildoer. It's not like Avraham Avinu as Ishmael and Yitzchak as Esav. Here we're talking about a complete, perfect mita. All his descendants, all his children, are dedicated to this legacy of Yaakov Avinu, to be Mekayim the mitzvahs of Hashem, and therefore, Vayishtachu Yisrael al Rosh Hamita. In a sense, what Yaakov Avinu is turning to the Ribono Shel Olam, and he's saying, God, thank you. I appreciate you gave me such a golden opportunity. You gave me children who are ripe, who had the potential. They had all ears and all of a soul, an open soul to influence, to uplift them, to inspire them. I had a child like Yosef, who's the tzaddik Yisod Olam, the great tzaddik, and he is going to make me into a chai, into a living mahalech, even after my death. And throughout Shas you'll see Rebbeim and Tanoim, Amoraim, who gather together their Talmidim on their deathbed, and they give them various inspirational talks about where they should put their emphasis. What they were trying to say is that you, my students, my disciples, you will make me into Mahalchim so that it could be Vayishkav Himavosav. And if we look on the top left, on page 3, the pasuk says, "Vayechal Yaakov letzavos es bonav, vayesof raglav el amita, vayigva vayosef el am." What's the emphasis here on Yaakov Avinu gathering his feet into the mita? What's the connection between Yaakov's feet and the mita? I mean, what did we think? Did we think his feet were hanging, dangling over the side of the bed? I once saw that in the hospital room, by the way. But in general, what's the emphasis here? And the answer is that Yaakov symbolically is saying that now that his son Yosef has committed himself on the Esa Kidvarecha with a Shvua, Yaakov Avinu, in all calm and a secure way, he declares, my feet are in the Mita. The Mita represents my children, my legacy going on and continue. And now I have my feet. I'm a Mahalech. I continue even in the Olam HaNeshamos to be a Mahalech. So Yosef, after his commitment, is going to make his father into Mahalech even posthumously. And therefore, Vayosef el Ama, says Rashi, the word Misa is profoundly, or what word am I looking for, is how do you say in English, ba'ofen bolet, in a very profound way, strikingly, excellent, strikingly omitted here. It says, Vayigvai Vayosef el Ama, says Rashi, Umisa lo nemra bo. It doesn't say that Yaakov died. V'amar Rabbeinu Zal Avinu lo mes. Yaakov didn't die. Yaakov continues to have an influence. He's not going to be buried in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a land of Tumah. Mitzrayim is a land of Avodah Zarah. Mitzrayim is a land where Yaakov Avinu understands that he can have no influence. His legacy is going to peter out, so to speak. But here in Eretz Yisrael, if he's buried, he can continue to have an inspiration on his children. And this, in a sense, takes us back to Eliezer Eved Avram. Eliezer says, Avram commands Eliezer, Simna Yodcha Tachas Yirechi, and take this oath of Lo Tikach Isha Lebni Mibnos Canaan. If I want to be a Mahalech, if I want Yirei Chaim, then the only way that can be guaranteed is if I know that Yitzchak will follow in my path. And that depends upon the wife, the woman that he marries. Make sure not to allow my son Yitzchak to marry one of the Bnos Kanani, one of the people, one of the people from those nations that are rotten to the core. The nations which later on Moshe Rabbeinu is going to command us to destroy. And the answer is, this is Avram Avinu's way of Simna Yodcha Tachas Yirechi, of guaranteeing that through his son Yitzchak and his marriage partner, he, Avram Avinu, will continue to be a Mahalech. And now we begin to understand and appreciate what does it mean, V'yasisa imodi chesed v'emes. How is Eliezer chesed shel emes? In the case of burying Yaakov posthumously, on Yosef's case, that's chesed of emes. But why does Eliezer speak about chesed shel emes? The answer is the chesed shel emes is something that guarantees a person's legacy even after he dies. That's called emes. That puts you in the perspective of emes. The greatness of burial and doing whatever you can to fulfill your father's wishes and guarantee that he will not be buried in Mitzrayim but will continue to have an impact, that's called chesed shel emes. It means, as he points out on the bottom left, ki hames atzmo kvar nimtza b'olam haneshamos. And there's no tashlum gmul. You can't expect that a person who's no longer a body, he's no longer a physical entity, he's just an neshama, he's a disembodied spirit, that he would expect any tashlum on kiyum mitzvahs. But there's something called chesed shel emes. Chesed shel emes is eino mitzapel gmul. Chesed shel emes means this is a real chiddush, a real something that's not anticipated, that even after a person is dead, he can still be mitzapel a continuous Gmul, meaning continuous Gmul and reward after he dies. How so? When he's in the next world of Olam HaNeshamas, there's no mitzvahs there. The answer is there are mitzvahs down here. That's what Chesed Shalemis is all about. Chesed Shalemis means that even the world of Emes, even the world of ultimate truth, where there's no integration of physicality, of flesh and blood, of taivas and so forth and so on, even in that world is Gmul. You would never expect there to be Gmul, but the Chesed Shel Emes will guarantee Gmul. There'll be reward and payment even in the world of Emes, even in the world that's posthumous, in the world of Neshamas. And how so? Because Yaakov Avinu lo mes. Because Yaakov is going to continue to live. Titein Emes li Yaakov Micha Novi says. Yaakov is Emes. Yaakov lives in the world of Emes, and yet he continues as a Mahalech. Because of the legacy, the Mita Shlema that he left behind him. He left behind him children that are now Beno Kari Davua. They are the legs of their father. They take their father forward, move him to a higher and higher level. And that's what we have to do. There's a lot more here, but we're going to stop here. Our message is a very fundamental, inspiring message. And for those of you who are in my age bracket or even younger, but you've lost a parent member, you know what I'm talking about. We are in a unique position with a tremendous burden and responsibility. And it goes beyond, as you mentioned, saying Kaddish, but it really encompasses our whole lives and every aspect of our lives. We can continue the legacy of our parents. As students, we can continue the legacy of our Rebbeim. And that is an unbelievable responsibility, an unbelievable opportunity to fill in, so to speak, the missing blanks for a Chesed Shel Emes, that even the Emes, even those who live in Emes, can still be Mitzapel Gmul, they can get more reward, they can still remain Mahalchim. Yiratzon may be His will that God give us the strength and the wisdom and the fortitude and the commitment, like a Yosef, Anochi Esek Kidvarecha, so that our parents and their ancestors, through our deeds and our accomplishments, will continue to be mahalchim. As the pasuk says about Yaakov Avinu, he didn't die. The word Misa doesn't appear. But Vayosef el Amo, he takes his legs into the Mita, because his legs will continue to move forward. And through our actions, we have an unbelievable opportunity to do that as a Chesed Shel Emes for those who impacted on us, and Hashem will grant them Kim Mif Olam, because they gave us that legacy, that inspiration, and will continue to inspire by them. Keni Ratzon.
Rabbi, just to say, we learned that when learning the books of the Gedolim, their lips move in the kid.
Right. Yeah.
That's another example. The doctor points out a beautiful point here, that somebody is dead and yet he's alive. He's still teaching. After my father died, we spent 5 years trying to publish a book based on his writings. And the book is called Dovev Meisharim, from the word Dovev, which means he's still speaking. Again, it was a play on words because my father's name was Dov. But Dovev Meisharim means that his Meisharim, the straight paths that he taught us on, Dovev, he's still speaking to us. And if anybody wants to get a copy of the Sefer, let me know. I'm not going to charge you for it, because if you come to my shiurim, that means I owe you one. All right, everyone should have a great Shabbos. It should be chazak, v'nit chazek. We're finishing Sefer Bereishis, and this is, I think, a great way of finishing, a great message for the end of Sefer Bereishis.
Rabbi, I'm not going to be here for 4 weeks. I'm going to
Memphis. How did I guess Memphis?
Well,